It's feeding the baby.
The classic pseudo-documentary horror film V/H/S has a new sequel, V/H/S/Beyond, which is definitely the scariest horror film of the year. The familiar and authentic pseudo-documentary filming style is still composed of several quite explosive short stories. However, this one is more intense and exciting than the previous ones, especially the first zombie short story. The story begins with a strange series of kidnappings. The tale begins with a series of mysterious kidnappings, 17 in total, all involving infants from the same small town. Given the severity of the case, the police launch an intense investigation, eventually tracking down the kidnapper's location. Without delay, the town's seasoned sheriff gathers all available officers, determined to capture the culprit that very night. With full tactical gear, the team sets out. As they approach the site, a camera catches a strange figure walking into the house, holding a chainsaw.
Is that right to a location that does?
Clearly, something isn't right, but the sheriff issues a strict order: no matter what they encounter, they're to crush it tonight. The officers exit their vehicles and cautiously close in on the eerie cabin. Peering through the windows, they see nothing unusual inside. One impatient officer kicks down the door, unaware of the nightmare awaiting them. The room is empty, and they think they've missed their chance until, out of nowhere, a crazed woman rushes down from the second floor and is swiftly taken down by gunfire. They had not yet recovered when there was a sudden noise from the roof, and another hideous woman pounced from the corner. The team manages to bring her down, but more of these maniacal figures start swarming in, moving like zombies. Thankfully, the officers are prepared, unleashing a storm of bullets that seems to stop the attackers. However, these zombies were surprisingly not dead and pounced on the unarmed photographer Segura. The team rushes to save him, finally taking down the relentless zombies in a hail of bullets. Realizing they're up against something far darker than a simple kidnapping, the officers make the call to split up and clear the house room by room. Under heavy fire, the zombies on the first floor were quickly cleared out. When the team regrouped, they discovered that an officer was missing. Just as they prepared to head upstairs to search, a zombie lunged at them, only to be shot to shreds mid-air by one of the officers. Segura, still shaken, noticed bloodstains on a cabinet and found some mysterious cans of shredded meat in the fridge, leaving him wondering what horrors had occurred here. Turning back, he saw his teammates had left. As he moved to follow them, a chainsaw-wielding zombie suddenly appeared, forcing Segura to dive into a room to hide. He pushed open another door, only to stumble into yet another zombie. With the chainsaw zombie breaking through the door, Segura bolted up to the second floor, turned off his light, and hid silently, holding his breath. The chainsaw zombie didn't spot him and eventually left the room. Relieved, Segura prepared to rejoin his team but noticed something strange on a table. Candles arranged around a peculiar creature fashioned from twigs, as if for a ritual. Suddenly, the sound of intense gunfire erupted downstairs as his teammates engaged a zombie. Segura rushed out to signal he was okay, but the chainsaw zombie burst into the crowd. Fortunately, everyone reacted quickly, with no injuries, and they launched a full-on attack, finally taking down the chainsaw zombie. However, just then, the teammate who had just disappeared suddenly appeared and furiously attacked the fallen zombies. The reason became clear: E.T.'s child had also been taken, and his anger was uncontainable. Once he calmed down, the team noticed something eerie. Each zombie had a bandage on its forehead, suggesting some sort of ritual that had turned them into these creatures. Just as they tried to make sense of it, they heard noises from upstairs. The captain ordered them to continue searching. They moved cautiously to the stairwell, where the sound of a baby crying echoed from above. Believing it might be his child, E.T. rushed ahead despite the danger. When the others reached the second floor, E.T. had already vanished. The team began to search each room one by one. Suddenly, a zombie floated by, but instead of attacking, it tried to avoid the officers, looking for a chance to ambush. Finding a door locked, the squad decided to abandon pursuit and entered the neighboring room. Inside, they discovered a gaping hole in the ceiling a meteorite had fallen through, leaving a disturbing sight. Even stranger, something seemed to have burst out from inside the meteorite, as if a creature had escaped. As they discussed the implications, one of the recently missing zombies ambushed them. only to have its legs blown off before it could strike. Seeing that the other person was motionless and kneeling in place, the team member tore off the bandage on its forehead. Segura leaned closer and noticed that the zombie's brain was empty. The bizarre scene made everyone shudder in horror. At that moment, the captain heard noises coming from a crack in the wall and ordered Segura to investigate. When Segura pushed a camera into the gap, he heard someone pleading for help. It was E.T.'s desperate voice, accompanied by another eerie sound.
Quiet. I see something.
When Segura turned on his flashlight, he nearly fainted. A more terrifying zombie was waiting on the third floor. Realizing E.T. might be in immediate danger, the team resolved to rescue him, but their path to the attic was blocked. Segura suddenly remembered the chainsaw downstairs and suggested they could use it to clear the way. Reluctantly, the team returned to the first floor. Just as the captain grabbed the chainsaw, the once dead zombies inexplicably reanimated, now looking even more monstrous. Knowing bullets were useless, the captain charged forward with the chainsaw, slicing the zombie down. But as soon as they took down that one, every fallen zombie in the room started rising again. Without hesitation, the captain lifted the chainsaw and tore through the crowd, cutting them all in half instantly. After the crisis passed, the team used the chainsaw to cut through the wooden boards. When they pushed open the door, they were greeted by scattered toy boxes and all sorts of lights on the floor. As they moved forward, a baby's cry suddenly echoed through the darkness. Aiming their flashlight ahead, they saw a zombie cradling a baby. The zombie didn't acknowledge them and simply shuffled into the next room, softly singing a lullaby as if trying to soothe the baby to sleep. The team didn't follow, though, as they spotted another passage leading up to the attic, its edges tangled with thick tree roots. Believing their missing teammate E.T. might be up there, they prioritized his rescue and carefully climbed the stairs. What they saw next, however, left them all in shock. One officer cautiously approached a crib and slowly pulled back the blanket covering the baby, only to recoil in horror. The baby's mouth had mutated into a pointed, beak-like shape, resembling a bird's beak. In their panic, they heard desperate wailing from behind them. Turning, they saw it was E.T. A creature with a bird's beak and a human body was draining E.T.'s brain, a sight identical to the twig creature Segura had seen earlier on the second floor. The birdman then fed E.T.'s brain to the ravenous, beaked infant. At this point, the scene defied all logic. Clearly, this creature was the entity that had crawled out of the meteorite, and the missing children and zombies were its handiwork. Sensing the human intruders, the birdman prepared to attack. Without hesitation, the officers struck first, unleashing all their firepower at the creature. Midway through the attack, E.T. suddenly mutated and lunged at the unsuspecting Segura. Segura managed to break free, only to be struck in the abdomen by the birdman, collapsing to the floor, severely injured. Fortunately, the rest of the team fought fiercely, managing to take down both the mutated E.T. and the birdman, the true culprit behind the horrors. It became clear that no creature could withstand their relentless firepower. Due to the bizarre and horrifying nature of the incident, the police chose not to reveal the truth to the public, stating only that the kidnapper had been neutralized. But, tragically, the babies did not survive. Years later, however, this long-buried videotape was accidentally leaked to the public,